Right, it's Tuesday, June 18th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. And today, on the second day of the week, we end up with a small two up green bar that took out the high the previous day, held above the midpoint of the previous day. Once you saw that green bar from yesterday, you kind of were anticipating that high would be taken out. So that was kind of the context going into the day. We knew we had to really get below the midpoint of this bar and below the open to turn the context a little bit down, on the weekly chart, maybe coming back through this range of these three bars. But since we broke out to the upside, and obviously today you could see we were opening up near the top of yesterday's range, there was no failure, to expect right away. Tomorrow and for the rest of the week, we kind of have an interesting scenario where it's a very small bar, so we could get a two down bar. Let's say things gap down tomorrow, but we have this fair value gap in here between the high of this bar and the low of this bar. So, it's kind of like last week. I remember where we gapped up. If we came down on a two down, we had this little gap in here to fill, and we were going to see what happens. And obviously, it never followed through from there. That's why I eventually made it push higher. So if we come down again and then have this little new gap up in here and can't really get way below that and turn the weekly chart back to red, then one, we could be failing on the downside, and two, we can set up nice buy signals, going forward. For now, it's up, a little bit of exhaustion risk, or maybe it's just pausing to build up energy for some more green going forward. But we will maintain the upward bias until, we have 2 days in the week now that's nicely green and heading up. So at this point, there's no real look of a weekly failure. In other words, to get through the midpoint of the prior week down to the bottom. It might end up a shooter bar if things fail on the daily chart, but we'll see that in the next few days. So in terms of today, it really wasn't easy trading in terms of direct opportunities for the SPY. The market kind of between the, the blue lines here would be the pre-market range approximately, and price opened up right above that immediately, but then paused for 2 or 3 bars. And once you saw that fourth bar turning red, you kind of anticipated you weren't getting that breakout to the upside to start, towards yesterday's high. You were going to go down first, and I was looking at it expecting that low of the day to be taken out, and the pre-market lows I would think would be taken out down here. So it did come down, take out the low of the day. You had about a half hour's worth of time. Then you get that pause here, and then it starts up back into the first bar range. It never took out this low. I thought it probably would have, even if it was going to have a red to green kind of move. So anyway, the only initial trade to do in the open would have been maybe buy puts here and see if it had a little pullback into this. There's a big gap in here. You can see anytime you get that kind of pricing, that's like a gap area that it might want to fill, either to reverse completely or maybe to test it and then head up again. But anyway, once you saw it kind of come down, take out the low of the day, not hit its target, pause, come back into the first bar range, and the continuities to the upside. This is the thing, you're kind of expecting that high of yesterday to be taken out up here. So, it would have been nice if that high was taken out first, then maybe you could have had the failure to the downside. But since it never did that, once you got the reversal, again, whether you took it or not, the only logical thing to do could have been playing a red to green move here, see if you take out the first bar high and the high of yesterday. And that's kind of what it did. It went up in one push, two pushes, took out the high of the day, first bar high, kind of simultaneously. Then it failed. It paused because that's the key inflection point up here. Came down, never really gave you any kind of red action that was going to test the lows of the day again. It just kind of grinded away and then closed near the high. So nothing easy today other than the upward bias. The only 2 trades to consider based on the way I look at the 15-minute price action would have been a put trade here and see if you maybe get a deeper pullback. But knowing you could have held the midpoint to that yesterday's bar and eventually started up, maybe you were going to get 2 pushes down on the day into yesterday's range, and that could have been a good base hit trade. Once it couldn't follow through past, the first bar low and the into the pre-market area and came back up, there was your chance to either exit any put trade, maybe aggressively buy if you just wanted to go with the context it was going to take out yesterday's high, and then you would have had to watch it grind up to take that out. From that point, I just kind of went sideways for the rest of the day. So even if you didn't take that, there was almost nothing to do. It never really got above. It kind of stayed within the first bar high all day long. The first bar high and low all day long until the very end, the very last bar. So you can almost see it was just a day inside that very first bar all day long. So that's why, nothing really easy to do in terms of trading the SPY, but to me, the only logical trades were a put here and maybe a very aggressive buy here, anticipating the high of yesterday would be taken out. So that's where we end up. We now know the reference points. Again, if we get a 2-down day, let's see how it treats this gap. If it can't really follow through and turn that weekly chart red, then expect higher, and then that could set up good opportunities. And of course, this could have just been a pause day, and we can get some more explosive moves to the upside. And we just have to see how opening price action, unfolds to know if that's really going to develop. So today, opening price action didn't really give you that explosive continuation, and that's why we look at opening price action relative to the pre-market range as kind of an indicator of what the day might do. So let's see how the rest of the week goes with an upward bias until things reverse.